Hi, welcome back to class, and we're on Module 4. And this week we are covering Chapter 6, so you could take a deep breath and just worry about one chapter this week. I know this is, we move along at a pretty fast pace during the summer, but we have to work through all the information. So this week we're going to look at oppression and social justice in the United States, and it's a very fitting topic for our time. So anyone who's been paying attention to anything would know that we are having this discussion right now on the national level and the state level and the city level in dealing with law enforcement. And so I'm using a case of the Equal Justice Initiative. And so we're going to look at Brian Stevenson, and he's an attorney and a civil rights activist and dedicated his life to working on reform in the criminal justice system. And he has some very creative, interesting ways to do this. And so we're going to look at some things that he's doing, because social policy is not just implemented with laws and regulations. That's part of it, but there's also changing perception and identities. And so this gets a little deeper and allows you to also investigate your own self. And so as we go through this week, it seems like there's a lot of work, but there's not that much. You're going to read Chapter 6 of the book and start responding to the Module 3 discussions. And remember, if you log on 3 times a week and post a response to each of those Module 3 discussions, there's 4 of them, you'll be fine. So 3 on each of those, a total of 12 responses. Then you're going to watch a TED Talk and 3 short videos from the Equal Justice Initiative, discussing a museum that they built about justice, mostly looking at the history of lynchings and some other things that Brian Stevenson does. So there's going to be a Dropbox assignment that I want to do this week because it goes along with this chapter. And you'll have the Chapter 6 quiz open for 2 weeks. And again, we're going to have 4 discussion posts, 4 initial posts for the Module 4 discussion. This isn't the case for the rest of the semester, but for a few of these weeks, we're going to have quite a bit of discussions here. And that's so we can really dive into the material at the level where you're talking with each other. Then you're going to start working on a fairness Dropbox assignment that deals with your individual perception. So you're going to discuss how fairness fits into your life, and then cultural humility. And this is a Dropbox I use in my race and ethnic relations class as well. In college, you hear a lot about cultural competency, and that's nice, but this is, I think, a little deeper. It gets into cultural humility. You're not always going to come across cultures that you're competent in understanding, but you should be able to practice humility when dealing with people that are a little different than you. And so cultural humility, this comes from the University of Michigan. From their social science area, so their area studying social workers. And then we're going to start part 2 of the paper. Again, this is a short paper, so it's gonna that will overlap till the ends of June, and I will put a Dropbox up as well for this week. So just going down what we have to do, and I hope this style is working out for you, that we work down our list. We have the Module 3 discussion. Again, you click here, you're going to have your 4 different topics, and you're going to respond on each of those 3 times throughout the week. So again, 12 responses total. Chapter 6 PowerPoint. Again, you don't need to print this out, but if you feel that that's necessary, go ahead and do it. Then we have this TED Talk here, and I want you to pay attention. This TED Talk actually got the longest standing ovation um, of a TED Talk, and he speaks about justice system and identities. And so it's a fascinating area to tie this class back to yourself. And then we're going to look at the EJI museum that they have. So they built a museum. You're going to see a video on Abbeville. So you're going to see a video about a commemorative marker about a lynching that took place. And this is one thing that the Equal Justice Initiative does. And you're going to watch a dedication to the national memorial that Brian Stevenson set up. And so with these, you're just going to write half-page summary, first about the TED Talk and second about the EJI videos. And I'm sure you'll find those very entertaining. It's fascinating. And then Module 4, Discussion Forum. Again, we have 4 different threads here. The first one's economics. It's going to look at the Jeffrey Sachs video, the Warren Buffett op-ed, and the video on Park Avenue. And so you can use those, or you can dig into extra sources. And we're going to discuss how economics reflects a society's priorities. So you can discuss our priorities by the economic investments that we make and the way we actually collect tax revenue. So you get to choose how you address this. You could use the information that was provided for the class or the textbook, or you can use other sources. If you do use other sources, go ahead and cite them so we know that they're actually coming from a source. And there you go. Then we're going to look at your main takeaway from the Brian Stevenson TED Talk. Again, what did this TED Talk say to you, and how can we apply this to our ongoing discussion about oppression and social justice in the United States? This should be pretty straightforward. Then we're going to look at the EJI, so discussing how nonprofits, again, not just policies are not just implemented by lawmakers. They're also implemented by nonprofits who are trying to better our society. So nonprofits such as the EJI address the complex overlapping and intersecting complexities in our social policies. So I want you to discuss how the EJI is approaching social policy by addressing history while looking toward the future. I want this to be about a 2-paragraph response. So again, this is forward-looking and backwards-looking at the same time. It's a fascinating way to look at policy. And then we have a question pertaining to the text, social movements. So you're going to discuss how social movements have had a significant impact on the expansion of rights or rights for ethnic or racial minorities, women, LGBTQ plus persons, and individuals with disabilities. So I want you to identify a social movement and give specific examples of how their efforts influence the development of social policy in the United States. And again, this should be something that we could see examples of right on the evening news. Right now, there's been a few days of protests, and I won't be surprised to see some reforms made and some laws changed at some level, maybe even at the federal level. Both parties right now are speaking about this, so it's interesting to see this policy window open up. Remember that from the last section, and see how people move to try to implement some change. So again, this is happening right before our eyes. This doesn't usually happen during a semester, so it's pretty fascinating. Chapter 6 quiz. Again, you'll have 2 weeks for this. I'll change the date. And the fairness assignment. So how will the concept of fairness be used in your life? Do you plan to advocate for social justice? If so, how? This is reflective. You really can't get this wrong. So sometimes we write in college just for ourselves and for your own thinking. Then I want you to understand this idea of cultural humility. Like I said, this is deeper than just cultural competency. And this is this is something that, again, I use my race and ethnic relations class, the exact same Dropbox assignment, because it's important. It's an important concept, and I I know you're going to be future practitioners of policy in one way or another, either on the street level, or maybe you'll be in a policy shop or teaching, or who knows what you'll be doing. But I want you to have this in mind and take this away from the class. And then lastly, the paper part 2 assignment. And so you're going to propose a possible solution to the problem that you see within the existing policy. So if you cannot identify a particular policy that deals with the problem that you identified, you can point out that the lack of policy is the problem, and then make a suggestion to suggest a policy that needs to be created. And again, policies are not perfect, and there are situations where they need to be evaluated and changed. And so you're able to discuss that here. And so if you have any questions, make sure you reach out to me. Otherwise, I'll see you next week, or you'll hear from me on a screencast. But again, any questions, make sure you send me an email. I can either set up a time to give you a call, or we can just exchange thoughts through the email system. Thank you so much, and take care.